Immediately upon the death of the film's primary character, John Dutton, played by Kevin Costner, you knew there would be a lot of trouble to pay. The Dutton family feared that their father had been murdered, and they began to bring their chickens home to roost. This was not just the case with the audience who expressed their disapproval of the show's treatment of their cherished patriarch, but also with the audiences themselves. The viewers were able to witness the beginning of that process, along with fights, tears, and everything else, in the episode that aired this week and was named The Apocalypse of Change. The beginning of the episode is a little bit confused, since it begins with the ranch hands down in Texas dealing with rattlesnakes in Teeter's Jennifer Landon tent, and a bat out of hell like Beth Kelly Riley coming to whisk Rip Kohlhauser away. There is a lack of clarity regarding the time period in which you find yourself as Rip back in Texas after the funeral. Can you believe that this is still 6 weeks before? When you see how carefree Beth is, it is very obvious that we are still in the before times. Not only do we learn that there is, in fact, a line of 6,666 ranch vodka products in the real world, but we also find out that Rip had never left the state of Montana before. This information is revealed to us as we watch Beth and Rip spend a weekend staying in a hotel in Amarillo that has its very own speakeasy. You would think that he would have at least visited Wyoming in response to Beth's assertion that they would be able to see the world if they were not tied to the ranch. He reveals to her that he was the one who made the decision to bind them. It is obvious that the show intends for it to be romantic, with the main character being a simple cowboy who adores the land to such an extent that he would never leave it, but instead it has a somewhat depressing effect. We don't think Rip would be interested in going on a tour of the Louvre, or even having a great time in Italy, but perhaps he might like spending a week in Hawaii riding horses and having some peace and quiet. Given the events that are expected to take place during this season, it is highly likely that he will require some time away from the game. According to what he says to Lloyd Forey J. Smith, going to prison for the rest of our lives doesn't solve anything. This means that even if he is successful in avenging John's death, he is not going to spend any time in jail. When we return to the main house, we find out that Summer, played by Piper Perabo, is still ensconced there, erroneously believing that she was granted a pardon from the governor that also included a requirement for house imprisonment. This portion of the episode seems a little weird, as if Yellowstone understood it needed to wrap up her storyline and character, but it was unable to find out how to do so now that Costner is no longer a part of the show. Beth acknowledges this fact when she sees Summer at the house, and she admits that she literally forgot Summer was there. We see her and Beth hurl insults at one another as she departs for God knows where, leaving from a pleasant airport, so we wish Summer a safe journey with our best wishes. There's never any use in asking why with Yellowstone, because the show lives in a universe with no repercussions and sweeping generalizations. But why does Market Equities even need to build a new airport when there's already a new-looking one right there? In addition, we get to spend a little bit more time with Case, played by Luke Grimes, Monica, played by Kelsey Isbill, and Tate, played by Brecken Merrill, who are repairing their ranch home in a world that has not yet been ravaged by murder. When we witness Case return home to the same small family, who have been waiting for him ever since they learned about John, we see that everything is all roses and sunshine, until it turns out that it is not. One of the most perplexing aspects of this timeline is the question of where Case spent the night. Is it true that he did not make a phone contact or communicate with his family since he left the governor's residence almost 24 hours earlier? Nevertheless, it is heartening to see the crew uniting around. We find out very immediately that they are all moving into the main house, because there is a lot to go through. But to be honest, if they're intending on waging all-out war with a private equity group capable of employing cruel mercenaries, it's probably best that the Duttons aren't spread out alone over thousands of acres anyhow. And they are going to war with mercenaries because, as Beth discovers when she pays an unannounced visit to Jamie's West Bentley workplace, he is such a chicken ST that he can't even look her in the eye when she talks about their father. Jaime is a mercenary. When Sarah Atwood Dawn Oliveri arrives later with her market equities employer, he is all bluster and swagger. Perhaps he is emboldened by the fact that Beth and Sarah had a really badass-looking workplace fight. When Jaime's employer was being smacked senseless with the door open just a few minutes earlier, why didn't Jaime's secretary phone the police at the Capitol? But we go off topic. Jaime assures the equity group that he will get the group's lease on Dutton's land renewed once Beth has finished plotting and making phone calls. This is a plot point that has been brought up for far too long to feel like it has any significance. The ranch is obviously being pursued by market equities, and Jaime claims that his family is unable to pay to manage it, so it's a win-win situation. However, Jaime also believes that Beth will fight him in court for approximately a year before ultimately losing and giving in. This argument is so ridiculous that it seems as if he has never met his actual sister, despite the fact that viewers saw him just a few seconds before. Whatever the case may be, Market Equities is pleased with what they have heard and has informed Jaime that they will back him for the governor's office in the event that he decides to run for it. Following the event, Jaime is left alone in his office with Sarah, and he takes her advice to feast on the bounty of his conquests in a rather literal sense. This is followed by a sexual scene that is so steamy that it is almost amazing that they can air it on basic cable. In spite of the fact that a significant portion of this episode is devoted to place setting for what is to come after all, we haven't even arrived at John's funeral yet. It does provide us with information regarding the consequences of what everyone is playing for. The mercenary friend of Case, Jake McLaughlin, who is known for his role in the television series Will Trent, says that the hit on John may have cost $40 or $50 million. The Duttons are rumored to be so financially strapped that they cannot even afford to keep their own ranch running. So it is reasonable to think that whatever form of vengeance they inflict will have to be homegrown. Case, on the other hand, seems to be completely committed to exacting retribution for the death of his father. Considering that there are only 4 more episodes of Yellowstone left to air, it is probably reasonable to conclude that whatever creator Taylor Sheridan has up his sleeve is going to be explosive, and it is going to be lethal.